Welcome to VCR, Vintage Cinema Rewind. We're bringing old movies to new viewers. I'm Blake.
I'm Michael.
And part 2, the deep dive of Videodrome.
Hey!
Long live the new flesh.
And it is living.
Yes.
And long.
And, well, not long, actually. We didn't talk about that in the
yeah, it is a
primer.
nice, tight 89 minutes.
Yeah, which is perfect. I love a nice 89-minute movie.
Yeah, I actually think this movie would be poorly served by stretching out.
Agreed.
It's almost kind of like, it's like a fever dream. You need to be as brief as possible.
Yeah.
Then you need to get the fuck out.
Yeah.
You know? Let that be a lesson to you guys. Sometimes you need to know when to leave.
Yeah. So we're talking to Videodrome. This is the spoiler-full episode, so if you haven't seen this one, go back and watch the primer. In terms of getting into this movie, I kind of actually want to hear, where do you want to start with this one?
I kind of want to start with Max himself, actually.
Okay.
You know, he's sort of an everyman protagonist.
Yeah.
But I actually found him quite compelling as a character.
Right.
When the movie starts, he's sleeping on the couch, and apparently, this is something you could do in the 80s. You could have your secretary drop off personalized good morning tapes that would go off at a set time, and she would explain all his different meetings and flirt with him and all that stuff, right? So it's interesting, though. We see him wake up on the couch to this thing all about the meetings he needs to go to and blah, fucking blah. And he looks like shit. He looks hungover.
Right.
You know, he's ostensibly this, like, really wealthy, really powerful guy, but he lives like a filthy teenager.
Yeah.
You know, like, he gets up. I was laughing at this, watching it. Like, he makes an espresso. He's got cold pizza still on the counter from presumably the night before. Dips the pizza in the espresso. You know, he's looking at, like, nudes, again, presumably, like, work that he needs to review.
Right.
He's getting pizza sauce on them,
which
I thought was just kind of a perfect metaphor for how he views art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I didn't pick up on that, but yeah, that's a good
I did
point.
just now while I was saying it out loud. But anyways, and then, you know, we cut to him meeting with these, like, Japanese producers, and they have this new kind of softcore porn thing that they want to, you know, show him. And it's a really great moment when, like, the executive is like, okay, we'll start with episode 1, 2. He's like, no, just show me the final episode.
Yeah.
And then they're just like, but you want to understand what's happening. He's like, yeah, I don't need to understand. And then we cut to, you know, him in this boardroom with, like, these two other dudes.
Yep.
And there's kind of, again, it's, you know, I don't know a whole lot about Cronenberg, but I have to imagine he would have feuded quite a lot with producers and executives and, like, censorship boards and stuff.
I'm sure that's, like, pretty standard.
Pretty standard operating procedure. Yeah. It's funny, total tangent. I remember when I was listening to an interview with Trey Parker where he talked about trying to get the MPAA to, you know, work with him on Orgasmo. You know, his, like, weird little thing that his weird little Trey Parker movie from pre-South Park. And when he asked them for feedback, the MPAA was just like, yeah, we just don't like it. So anyways, you know, they have this scene where they're, like, watching, you know, this, it looks like a historical period piece kind of thing. And they're just kind of like, they're all smoking cigarettes. It's the 80s.
Yep.
And they're all just kind of like, yeah, we could maybe do this or do that. And again, I have to imagine Cronenberg was channeling some of his own frustrations, like watching very uncreative people look at a work of art
and rip it apart.
Yeah, just because they want to turn a quick profit somewhere else, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and then later on, we see Max has this appearance on a talk show. This is where he meets Nikki, the femme fatale, who's kind of like a radio host, whatever. And, you know, Max is kind of considered, like, this bad boy because there's all this moral purity stuff about, like, you're pushing softcore porn and violence, like, you're degenerating society, blah, blah, blah. And he kind of argues that it's a harmless outlet for frustrations and fantasies.
Right.
Nikki calls him out on it, and then he immediately turns on her. He's like, oh, yeah? Well, why are you wearing red?
Right.
You know, you're obviously trying to get attention. Somehow that apparently works, and, like, he's able to start sleeping with her.
Yeah, they basically just, like, in the middle of this interview, just, like, go off on a romantic, like, tangent.
Yeah, like, he basically just starts ignoring the host so he can riz her up, as the kids say. So,
and all the while, the host is talking to Brian Oblivion.
Right. Great name.
Yes.
But,
great name. There's some solid names in this movie.
Yeah. Even Max Wren. Like, there's something a little, like, Max Wren could be, like, the villain in, like, a thriller from the 70s or something.
And I mean, depending on perspective, like, you brought up a good point that this is a character who's in an executive position. whose job is essentially to take somebody's art and strip it down for profit.
Right, which, I mean, admittedly, you know, like I have an agent and sometimes we do have conversations like that. Like,
Yep.
will this sell? Will this not sell? Like,
Right.
you know, it is a business and it has to make money, right?
Yep.
But, you know, I thought this movie did a really good job with Max and like characterizing him. Like, again, there's another scene which I talked about in the primer where his agent, who's like kind of this really sassy older woman.
I don't actually think she's his agent. I think she's like a producer who just sells content to him.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. It was a little unclear. Like, but there's a great moment where she says to him, like, "Have you ever thought about producing your own show in house?"
Yeah.
And he's just kind of like, "I don't really have the temperament for
Yeah.
it." Yeah.
Which is probably more like, I don't really have the artistic flair to be able to do it myself.
Yeah, basically, right? It is kind of, when she says it, he kind of like makes a weird gesture with his face where it's like, I wonder if maybe he wanted to be creative, but he just did too much cocaine or something.
Well, I wonder how many people in those positions maybe wanted that and just couldn't quite achieve that.
They just couldn't stick with it.
And so by staying in the same industry, right? Like you've got access to creativity even though it's not necessarily yours.
Right. Well, there's another great moment later on where we cut to those other two producers, executives, whatever, and one of the guys is talking about, "Oh, we're just going to dub it in. We're going to dub over this." And
right.
the other executive's like, "Well, who's going to write that?" And the first executive's like, "I'll write it." He's like, "I used to write in high school." And I'm all like, "Oh, I see you, bitch." Like, I think in less capable hands, this character is very boring.
And yet, like I said, for the first 2 acts, I was pretty involved in this movie. Like I found this really intriguing. And it's compelling how Cronenberg was able to, essentially make a bunch of TV executives into compelling characters that I wanted to follow.
Well, even so he starts having this affair with Nikki. It becomes pretty clear that for all his bluster, Max is not the man he thinks he is.
Right.
Nikki is really into like BDSM and like really into like inflicting violence on herself. Like there's the scene where she puts a cigarette out on her breast, and Max is very clearly like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Like he's very clearly uncomfortable with it. Or like there's even some stuff where, you know, he has the Videodrome tape and she's like, "Well, let me see it." He's like, "I don't think you want to see it." But she's almost more into it than he is. Mm-hmm. I just found that tension kind of interesting where like, as much as he kind of styles himself as this kind of like bad boy rock star producer, he's actually a lot more squeamish than he lets on.
Yeah, that's a really good point that I didn't actually think about all that much while I was watching this one. You definitely caught more on your... I think that part of it was because you caught more on your second viewing, where I was like more trying to focus on the mystery and trying to figure out what this movie was trying to say. And I think I missed some of these details, honestly.
Yeah, fair enough. And then, it's basically the plot, if you can call it that, is that Videodrome, it's not an act. It's very clearly, these are actual people being tortured.
Right.
And the Videodrome is so evil that it basically gives you a tumor that causes you to start hallucinating.
Right.
At least that's what they claim is happening.
Yeah. And it's like it's a method of control, essentially.
Yeah.
And this is kind of where I was expecting there to be maybe more of an explanation, maybe, because, you know, Brian Oblivion, his explanation is like, okay, well, TV has become the primary focal point for reality, and that most people experience these days reality through TV, which is a really interesting theme and idea. And you know, in 2025, TV, I wouldn't say is that primary reality box, but like we're certainly still connected to media and technology, and it's just become like the internet is our TV right now, right?
Yeah, that's what's kind of, we were talking about this last week. What's kind of so interesting about this movie is that it's primarily focused on TV and porn, I guess, but like...
And violence.
Violence, sure.
Yep.
This movie kind of predates the internet, and it predates social media and smartphones.
Right.
In some ways, it's just become more relevant nowadays.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so I think that this movie, that's one of the things that this movie gets right, is that human beings are perverse, weird creatures that become fascinated with these taboo thoughts and ideas. Like,
Yeah.
there's definitely been some violent things that have happened in our culture in the last 6 months.
Yeah, more recently than that. Yeah.
That have, become focal talking points and have become like things that, like I've seen things on the internet related to stuff like this that a more timid person would be horribly distraught by, and yet I'm so desensitized that I can watch something pretty horrific and kind of bat an eye.
Yeah, it is interesting. And like kind of expanding on that, this whole idea that like, he says something like TV has kind of replaced our consciousness and our imagination.
Right.
Like it's interesting. Like, I don't know about you, but sometimes when I daydream, I'm almost daydreaming like I'm playing a movie in my own head.
Or like scrolling through Reddit or something like
Yeah,
that, right? Like,
right.
And I've kind of talked about this before, how like we all kind of live in our own realities now.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what this movie was trying to get at as well, right? Is that the new reality is what you see on TV, and that's how you experience life. And so therefore, the reality that you experience through TV becomes more real than the reality around you. And like, how much time does the average person in North America spend looking down at their phones, right? Like, that is your reality. Like, so for some people that might be more your waking reality than the rest of your actual reality, like what's physically around you.
Right. Well, a lot has been said, especially in these very polarized times, about how like you go online and you just see people screaming at each other.
Right.
But in general, you go out in public and everybody's pretty relaxed and civil, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
for
it's kind of
sure.
just like, these tech companies are just trying to monopolize our attention and like
Yeah.
farm engagement, and they do
Right.
that by upsetting me.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I think the other interesting kind of piece to this too is like, the part of this movie that explains Videodrome and what Videodrome is actually being utilized for. Not necessarily what Brian Oblivion wanted it for, but Barry Convex is actually using it for in their network. Is that it's a method of control, and it's a method of eliminating the undesirables, the people who are interested in viewing this type of content, right?
yeah.
Reading into that a little bit, like you can kind of see, those ideas crop up time and time again, where there are people who want to censor by any means necessary. And so, like, I wouldn't actually say it's funny because Max Wren is the central point character in this film, and he's a TV executive, right? Like,
Yeah.
TV executives normally wouldn't be the protagonist of a film, and yet
Yeah.
you empathize with him significantly more than somebody like Barry Convex, who is, or even like Harlan, right? Who
Right.
are-
Spoiler alert, Harlan's a bad guy.
yeah, who are essentially like trying to destroy these people who would be interested in these perverse ideas and thoughts, right?
Right.
And essentially, like, Max is into torture porn, but he's not a terrible guy.
No.
So like, he's a
Yeah.
pretty complicated character, right?
Right. And this is kind of where I'm with you in that, like, to be honest, like all that stuff with Harlan and Barry Convex and like the
Yeah.
opticians, I was a little like, wait, what's going on? Like,
Yeah.
I couldn't really follow the evil plan.
Right.
I didn't
exactly.
really care, but I was a little like, wait, what are you guys trying to do?
Yeah.
Like, they do start waxing philosophical about like removing the undesirables from our society, and I'm a little like, okay.
Right. Yeah, and it becomes very convoluted and hard to follow, and that's in part because of the way that this movie is framed, right? Like, Max is the focal point of the focal point of this movie, and
He's tripping balls the entire time.
like, and it's really hard too, because it's almost like blink and you miss it, and then you become like kind of just confused watching it. Like that third act shift where Barry puts the helmet on him, and then he wakes up, and from there on it's like, am I still in the helmet at this point?
Yeah.
Or have we actually like moved on into this new, has things evolved from here? Like,
Right.
and
So
what's
then-
hallucination and what's not hallucination?
Yeah, and then there's a lot of stuff about like that's when kind of the body horror kicks in. That's where like
Yeah.
his VCR slot opens up in his chest.
Yeah.
And like his gun kind of fuses itself to his hand.
Yeah, he's got a cancer hand, is what I read that as.
Yeah, a cancer hand.
Yeah.
So, and then like he kind of goes on this topsy-turvy adventure where it turns out Brian Oblivion's daughter was actually in on it the whole time.
Well, yeah, but she was one of the freedom fighters, like because Brian Oblivion wanted to use Videodrome for good somehow.
Yeah,
he wanted to like unlock people's like the next reality for people, but
you could say he was kind of like a tech evolutionist.
Yeah, he's kind of the Mark Zuckerberg of this movie.
I guess, even though he's been dead the whole time.
Well,
yeah. Well, then this is where we were kind of dancing around this in the last episode where, what I think really sells me about this movie isn't as much the plot, it's the scenes themselves.
Yeah.
Like the scenes are almost always so interesting and so compelling that I almost kind of, my girlfriend and I were talking about this, like how often when you read a book are you just sort of like a passenger princess? Mm-hmm. You're just kind of like, you're enjoying the scenes, you're kind of enjoying what's happening.
Yeah.
Then you look over your shoulder and you're like, wait, what's going on?
Right.
Like I would argue like Stephen King is an author that I feel this way a lot of, where I'm like, I'm really enjoying this. I'm not totally sure how this all fits together.
Right.
And almost always it doesn't.
Yeah.
But, I'm still having a good time.
Yeah, it's definitely like a movie that's more about the ride. And I was having a lot of fun with the ride, but every time I tried to pull at one of the seams, I kind of found that there wasn't maybe as much there as I wanted there to be.
I suppose.
Which is, and that's kind of this is not a great comparison, but like, you and I just recently watched one ballad after another, and like I've seen that a couple times now.
Yeah, good
and
movie.
Like that's a movie where you can pull at the seams and be like, oh, this is a really interesting idea that maybe the director is going for here. Whereas I think that maybe Cronenberg had some great ideas, but he didn't like fully explore all of them maybe as deeply as I was looking for.
And this might be an example of like form dictating content. Like Max is hallucinating, so in some ways does it even really matter what's literally happening?
Right.
This is what's in front of you right now.
Yep.
Like even
this is the new reality.
This is
long live the new flesh.
Right. So
great quote. Side note, I don't really fully understand what it means either, but I love it.
Like I'm a little confused, but I got the spirit.
Yeah.
But no, even like there's that scene where he basically kind of fucks his television.
Right.
Where like Nikki appears to him on TV and like the television starts moaning orgasmically and like the eye kind of moves forward and then you see him kind of stick his head in it. Mm-hmm. And I think it cuts to the next day where he's all kind of out of it and someone's like, are you hungover? He's like, no, I just was up all night watching television.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, that's what a porn addict would say. But so yeah, even the ending where like he stumbles into a boat or something and there's a TV there with Nikki on it and she basically wants him to like toss aside his form and like join her in like the new reality.
Right.
Like basically it's
your fleshy body is you've moved beyond it, or I don't
it's almost
exactly
kind of framed in like religious
Yeah.
imagery, right? Where it's like you need to like ascend and become
Right.
one with the whatever, and
Yeah.
then it shows him shooting himself on the TV, and then we see the same thing now as a viewer. I really liked that kind of turn, but it's a little just like, I don't know what just happened, but it probably wasn't good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it ends like that, very abruptly.
Right. So, I mean, yeah, it's kind of hard to parse out the layers here, and in some ways it doesn't really matter what's literally happening.
Right.
This is kind of Max's interior experience. There was one scene that I thought was almost a little too much for me.
Okay.
Even when I saw this movie at 18, I was like, that's a little fucking ridiculous.
Uh-huh.
But, like, I'm kind of okay with it.
Is it the Harlan scene?
Yeah, it's the Harlan scene.
Okay.
Yeah. So Max goes to assassinate Brown Oblivion's daughter. She somehow talks him out of it.
Uh-huh.
And then she's all like, we're going to use their tools against them. Long live the new flesh. Then he goes back to, like, the optician store where Harlan's there. And he's like, yeah, I killed her. She's dead. He's like, oh, let me give you a new tape then. And he pulls out, like, a really...
Right.
Reaches into his, like, chest cavity. And he pulls out a World War I.
Well, that's what his arm has, like, warped into, right?
Oh, yeah.
And, okay, so for me, and I think this is probably more a sign of, like, the times and just being 40 years in the future. I didn't know that was a World War I grenade.
I didn't really know either. It's only after I actually looked it up.
Yeah, same. And so, like, I was just like, oh, he's chewed away his arm, and it's like got a weird ball where his wrist is, and then it's just chewed to the bone, the rest of it. But no, it was a World War I bomb, like you were saying.
Right,
Grenade.
right. And then he blows up.
Yeah, and he's screaming and running around with it.
Yeah. So, despite how on board I am with this movie, that's the one moment where I'm just like, wait, what the fuck? Like,
yeah. And I love the imagery of like the boiling
fleshy
diseased,
arm. Yeah.
I mean, or the like the VHS tape, right?
Yeah.
Which is actually a Betamax tape, but
Right. Betamax was a superior product, but VHS defeated them through better marketing.
Nice.
Anyways, yeah, but just the imagery of like, that's the one moment where I'm like, wait, so let me get this straight. You stuck a World War I era hand grenade in your chest.
Mm-hmm.
You tricked Harlan into reaching in there, and then you like fused it to his arm.
Right.
And then he blew up, and you then just walked through the hole in the wall and pretended like nothing happened.
Yeah, there's a lot of chaotic stuff happening, and not a lot of people trying to stop the chaotic stuff happening.
Right. And one thing I did notice about that moment on second viewing is, so Harlan blows up, he just walks through the hole in the wall. But as he's leaving, you see like this mother and her daughter, and the daughter's like,
Yeah.
look, Mom, a wall. And she's like, no, come on, let's go. So it's like, okay, this is obviously intended to be ridiculous.
Right.
This is intended to
Yeah.
be funny, and
Yeah.
it kind of is.
Yep.
So maybe don't take it too seriously.
Yeah, and I'll say that we haven't really talked about Barry too much, but I love Barry Convex's portrayal. Like, he's kind of got this know-it-all quietness to him that I thought was portrayed extraordinarily well.
Yeah, like he doesn't scream. Like my whole thing was like, wait, so are you actually an optician, or are you
Right.
like an evil overlord pretending to be an optician?
Yeah.
And what I think is funny is that like, no, maybe he's an optician. Like it's
He's he's got this quiet like knowingness, and he doesn't have to explain his grand plans to Max. Like, he doesn't even feel the need really to do that. Like,
yeah, like he's so low key that he almost doesn't.
Yeah.
You almost don't even know he's the villain.
Yeah. I thought his portrayal was extraordinarily good.
Which is probably what evil looks like in the real world. Just
Right.
dudes in suits who are like,
I'm better than you, basically.
I'm better than you,
But
and
I don't
I-
need to say that.
Yeah, I'm better than you, and I'm not drawing attention
I
to
think
myself.
that just made his character as a villain like just more three-dimensional for me.
Yeah, well, there's even that great moment where, so he wants Max with this helmet on so that they can scan his Videodrome era tumor or whatever.
Right.
Which is obviously a trick, right? But,
Yep.
After he sticks it on, he just goes, oh, you'll forgive me if I don't stick around. Like, I'm no good with this messy stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you little shit. Like, you're basically cleansing society through violence, but you're too squeamish to actually really even look at it.
Yeah.
You know?
I wrote down in that moment, can't cope with the freaky stuff.
Can't cope with the freaky stuff. Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, I mean, I'm with you in the sense that, like, Barry Convex, good villain. Not entirely sure what you were up to, Barry, but...
Yeah, like, I feel like there's probably easier ways to complete your mission other than, like... And they didn't even fully explain, like, it was kind of like, oh, we're gonna infect Max, and Harlan's gonna specifically, like, bring this up to you to show you this, to infect you. But it's not really like explains like, oh, we have some grand plan where you're going to roll this out for us. Like, they're never really in control of Max.
Yeah. This is where I'm like, is this all just a hallucination?
Yeah.
Because even this whole idea that like, so there is some stuff early on where Max is wondering why Harlan isn't infected because they both watched the tape.
Mm-hmm.
But it turns out Harlan's just like, I didn't watch it.
Yeah, I wasn't looking at it ever.
I wasn't looking at it ever. But I'm like, wait, but so you're just, it was on and you were just the whole time you're like, I'm not looking at that.
Well, I bet you on rewatch you would notice that, though. That
little
he never
details.
that he's not looking at it. Although, I kind of wonder, like, how the... And again, I shouldn't be asking these kind of questions, but I am.
Yeah.
But, like, I just wanted to know, like, how is Videodrome causing this in your brain? Because, like, it's clearly not the audio because the audio was present when Harlan was in the room. So
Right.
it has to be some combination. But, like, is there some sort of subliminal messaging? Like, it would have been cool to explore that, right? Like,
I guess, yeah.
I guess a movie that's kind of comparable to this is something like They Live, right? Where it's like, oh, there's something going on under the surface here, and it's affecting society. but unless you have these special glasses, you don't even know that this is going on, kind of thing, right?
Right. Well, Barry Convex being an optician clearly ties into like the theme of perception or whatever.
Yep.
I kept waiting for him to be like, we have magic glasses, that's why we don't
Right.
see it or something,
Uh-huh.
right? Which maybe that was implied, but it was never explicitly stated. The other thing is that when Max does finally riddle Barry Convex with bullets, it turns out he's suddenly filled with tumors.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of like again, that's probably the hallucination thing, but it's also probably like, you know, whatever Max is super infected with at this point, like he's basically the Toxic Avenger.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, not the way I thought you were going with that, but yeah, that's another thing where it's just like
Style over substance.
yeah,
in that,
I
maybe.
guess so, right? But I mean, I guess this is what happens when you have a character who's hallucinating, is that you're just kind of like, does the author even really know what's happening?
Right.
And again, does it even really matter?
Yep.
But
One of the things that Cronenberg has said about this movie is that everything up to Max meeting Barry Convex at Spectacular Optical is happening, like has happened, and then everything beyond that, he said things became more complicated, but he won't explain how. So
that sounds like a very Cronenberg thing to do.
Yeah.
Just more complicated.
more complicated is the wording he used.
Yeah. That kind of makes sense. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, anyways, we're failing the vibe check here, but
I am. I think you rolled with it a little bit more than I did, which is
Yeah.
not usually the case, but
not usually, but somehow I was in on this movie.
yeah, I mean, like I said, I really liked 2/3 of this movie, and I was somewhat confused in the third act.
So the third act kind of lost you.
Yes.
Okay.
That was it. And you know what? And that's kind of what I was saying in the primer. Like, I think that because I kind of grabbed onto the mystery of this movie, and you know, like there was some really cool ideas happening, and I was like already, you know, like tying this to the internet, and like while watching it, I was like, oh, these are like some really cool ideas, and they've held up really well. And then the shoe didn't really quite drop for me because it became so psychedelic at the end that I was kind of like, oh, like I really wish that we had just explored where we were going with these ideas a little bit more.
Right.
And maybe they're there, and maybe I just missed them.
So I guess what I'm hearing is it's almost like you liked the vibe and all these ideas it was presenting, but
Yeah.
then at the end you thought it kind of just evolved into body horror
Yeah, and you know,
spectacle.
and you know, this is like maybe a really good comparison to like The Substance, right? Which I would say probably follows a very similar trajectory to this. A little less mystery involved, right?
Yeah.
But a third act that becomes very gruesome and gory.
Yeah.
Although for me, I found, you know, through the gore of the third act of The Substance, like I got the message of what the director was saying. I really
Right.
felt like connected to what they were saying.
Like you never got lost in the sauce, so to
No.
speak. Yeah.
And you know, this one maybe I just didn't quite see that, right? And obviously like The Substance has a huge nod to Cronenberg and his filmography.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of get what you're saying. I guess for me, I never really felt all the body horror kind of felt like an extension of the ideas, right?
Uh-huh.
Like the VCR slot in his chest, even like the
Right.
entrails shooting out of a TV, right?
Yep.
To me, it was almost just kind of. I remember when he starts fucking the TV,
Uh-huh.
so to speak. I remember looking over at my girlfriend and being like, "This is a metaphor." Do you get it? Do you get it? It's a metaphor.
Yeah.
So I guess to me, it wasn't so much, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but to me, it didn't feel like a cop-out. It felt more like we're just taking these ideas and we're just amplifying it.
Yeah, or making them, they're more subtly explained than maybe I caught on my first viewing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you know, I'm with you in the sense that, like, the whole villains, even their evil plan, I'm just like,
Yeah.
but I mean, it didn't matter to me. It's almost kind of like, you know, I read this once where it's like, so if Sauron gets the ring, he's going to conquer the world, but all the ring does is make you invisible. And it's a little like, huh, but like, you know what? You just don't really question it.
Right.
You're like, nah, I guess that would be bad if the Dark Lord could turn invisible. That would probably suck. But anyways, so
This is coming from the guy who didn't have Lord of the Rings in his top 100 movies.
no, it didn't. But I know.
I'm
aware.
gonna butt actually you, but I won't.
Oh, okay, fair enough. But what'd you think about the reveal that Brian Oblivion was dead the whole time?
I liked it quite
Yeah.
a bit actually, and that's where again I was super intrigued by the first couple acts, and that the idea of okay, this guy who quote unquote went insane the last year of his life because of Videodrome, decided to record hundreds, if not thousands of hours of videotapes that were basically like windows into the future. Like he essentially recorded all of these tapes and was speaking to the people of the future and able to transport himself to those future conversations.
Right. I mean, to me, and this obviously wouldn't have been intentional in 1986, it almost reminded me of like AI almost.
Right.
There's even that great line where Professor Oblivion says, like, Oblivion isn't my real name.
Yep.
Someday we're all just going to like live in this digital space and have our own monikers.
Right.
And this was pre-social media.
Yep.
Probably pre-internet. So
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, shit.
It was.
Yeah.
Certainly, by like 10 years.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, plot-wise, I really, really enjoyed the movie quite a bit.
Yep. I mean, and speaking on that, too, like, I remember my parents' generation, like, all of my dad and his buddies all have nicknames for each other, right? That they actually use with each other. Like, nobody goes by their actual name. Whereas, like, our generation, I wouldn't say anybody really does that. Like, we don't have nicknames for each other the way that, like, previous generations did. And that's maybe in part because we have our internet monikers, like you said.
Yeah, if you want a fake name, just...
Yeah, or a PlayStation name or an Xbox name. Or
yeah,
like
that's
your PC
we all
gamer
had
name.
Different accounts.
Yeah.
I was so and so,
and then you've got your Reddit account, you've got your Facebook account, like you've got all these, your Twitter account, and like whatever your handle is has some sort of meaning to you, but maybe it doesn't necessarily have like a overt meaning to anybody else.
Yeah, no, I didn't even make that connection, but yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think that's all I had to cover plot-wise. Like, it's like we said, it's a nice, tight 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Covers a lot of ground in that time.
Yeah, it really does. I do want to, again, just highlight, like, the special effects of this movie are fantastic. While I was watching it, I kept being like, well, how are they doing, like, the stomach slit, the torso slit? And, like, it looks so real in, like, the way that James Woods was moving around with it and everything. I was like, that they're doing a really good job, and like it really sold me on it. I love at one point he got really tired of wearing the slit everywhere because they had to do a lot of filming with it. And at one point he said, "I'm not an actor anymore. I'm just the bearer of the slit." Just a great quote.
Yeah.
I guess getting into the effects and filming a little bit. I love that this movie, so the station that they work at is called Civic TV, which is a reference to City TV, which is a Canadian news network, essentially.
Oh, yeah.
And apparently the reason why it's a reference to that is because apparently back in the 70s, City TV used to broadcast like softcore porn at night as their late night programming and other violent movies. And it was all under kind of this programming block that they called the Baby Blue Movie, which was just like I said, softcore porn and violence.
Isn't it interesting to think this is kind of just what porn looked like in this era?
I guess so, yeah.
I guess. I don't know. The whole idea that it's like an actual movie with characters and a plot,
right,
and also sex. I was all like, huh, okay.
Right, yeah, because that's what Max's like channel was essentially about, right? Like, yeah, it was multiple TV episodes and everything. So.
Yeah, but with sex. And I was like, I guess this was an industry.
Yeah. Well, and again, speaking to the art being stripped down and it just kind of getting rid of maybe plot and just getting down to the nitty gritties, right?
Yeah, I guess fair enough. I mean, you and I are the Pornhub generation. So anyways, I guess it was ahead of its time in that sense.
Well, yeah, and I mean, and that kind of speaks to the ideas of this movie about art and about like the degradation of art and how at the end of the day, I think you said this in the primer, that art has to make money.
Yeah.
And that isn't even necessarily true, and it shouldn't be true. Like, art shouldn't necessarily have to make money.
Right.
However,
right.
because of we live in a capitalist society, and that's the only way that art gets funded, and that's the only way you survive is by being able to pay for your next meal.
Yeah,
I mean, shelter. So
there's apparently, I think Disney has confirmed that they've essentially just killed the Tron franchise.
Yeah,
because it just keeps. We've tried 3 times and they just keep bombing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we didn't even talk about this. I did want to highlight that at one point we are walking through a homeless shelter full of TVs.
Oh yeah,
and it basically, like, the explanation is that TV connects you back to reality. So like, getting these people off of their feet and watching TV again somehow builds normalcy back in their lives.
Yeah.
Which, you know what? Kudos back in 1980 for coming up with an idea to solve the homeless crisis. Like,
We just gotta make them watch TV.
at least they're trying something, you know? I feel like we gave up at one point, and it's become pretty sad out there these days.
It has
So
become very sad. We just need to get them to watch TV.
Yeah.
But that was one of those moments where the movie seemed so like, it seemed grounded in some sense. That was the one moment where I'm like, this feels a little ridiculous, but
I actually liked it.
I
was still rolling with it at that point.
I liked it a lot too. It didn't really take me out of the movie. It just kind of made me go like, huh, all right.
You mentioned too the budget. The budget for this one was about $6 million, which is about 3 times that today. And so this was Cronenberg's biggest movie at this point in time. And it bombed excessively hard because they didn't really want to market it after giving Cronenberg a bunch of this money.
They're just like, ugh.
And you know what is really interesting too is like, reading about the script and the plotting of this movie, like the original script that would have been handed out to producers was way more graphic and disturbing, but they pared it down quite a bit because the special effects weren't there.
Yeah, I've heard that like they had a bunch of different endings in mind, but they basically just ran out of time and money.
Yeah.
So that's how we got James Woods shooting himself on a boat.
Yeah, there was some stuff about like in Canada and the way that they were getting the tax credits for this movie. They had to get it done by the end of the year, so I think they started filming in like the fall or something like that.
Yeah.
And then they had to be done by the end of December.
Which, by the way, we didn't really talk about this, but there was a big influx of Canadian movies in the 80s just because there was some kind of incentive where like you could get like a tax write-off if you funded it.
Yeah.
So that's where we got a lot of really interesting Canadian movies.
Yeah, we'll have to explore that a little bit more because I haven't seen a lot of those movies.
Yeah, I haven't either, TBH, but this is one of them.
Yeah, and the person who was doing the special effects for this one was Rick Baker, who did the special effects for An American Werewolf in London, a movie which has great special effects, but is, in my opinion, a little tonally all over the place.
Okay.
And it ends very dark for kind of the vibe of the rest of the movie.
So you found it it's a little not for Blake.
It was a little jarring, honestly.
Okay.
I watched it for the first time last year because I it's a movie that I'd heard of for a long time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was having a lot of fun with it, but I was like, oh man, this tone's a little all over the place. I don't really know where this is going. And then I was like, wow, that was an ending. So,
yeah, no kidding.
Interesting movie, very interesting movie. I'd recommend that as well because, like I said, the special effects of that one are also incredible. But ending doesn't quite work for me, which is funny because you wouldn't expect necessarily like the ending of a horror movie to matter as much as the ride. I would say more often than not, but. But again, I think it was just because this one I was really along for the mystery element of it and the deeper themes here. Oh, David Cronenberg actually body doubled for James Woods when they put the helmet on him because they were afraid that he was going to get electrocuted.
Yeah, well, I mean, kudos to James Woods for being like, actually,
yeah,
I'm not putting my head in that thing. And kudos to Cronenberg for being like, fine, I'll do it. Like, I'll suffer for my art. I'll be electrocuted.
Yeah.
Remember, I think we were talking about this a few months ago where it's like, if you want to be a filmmaker, you need like a sick passion for this.
Yes.
And sometimes that sick passion means sticking your head in a box that might electrocute you.
I mean, I think that's with all art or creative roles. Like, you have to be extraordinarily passionate about it to the point where, like, your life might suck, but that's okay because you're getting to do what you love.
Yeah, fair enough, right?
And there's a little bit of give and take with that, right? Like, you shouldn't put yourself on the streets. You shouldn't starve to death for your art necessarily, but at the same time, like, you do have to a little bit to get to.
You kind of have to take the risk. Yeah, fair enough. If you want to do it for a career, that is.
Yeah, I was too risk averse to get into this, unfortunately.
Yeah,
but that's what we're doing a podcast instead.
Podcasting.
So, sequels, prequels, reboots. I guess there's a director's cut of this movie. And I highly doubt that I watched the director's cut version. I wouldn't say it adds a lot necessarily into narrative in the scenes. It just adds like extra seconds. And mostly extra seconds of violence and sexual content to the movie.
Oh, so it's not even really a director's cut. It's just a slight expansion.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it sounded like Cronenberg was a little disappointed with the final product of the theatrical version. Like,
Yeah.
they would just like cut a little bit shorter. Like, it would be a few seconds here. Like, there's a moment during I think it's the scene where they're showing all of the group of executives, like that.
Oh, like the Japanese
Japanese thing, yeah. Like, and there's like apparently there's a dildo in one scene, but it just like cuts it where you can't really make it out, and there's just a couple seconds that make it clear what it is.
Maybe I did see the director's cut. I'm pretty sure I saw the dildo.
Yeah, there's just like little bits like that where it's like, oh, they cut the Videodrome just by a few seconds,
right?
Because they didn't want to show too much of the
video and the drone.
Yeah. Yeah, so the Criterion Collection kind of added all that stuff back in for the director's cut.
So it's not even really a director's cut; it's a dildo version.
Well, yeah, but it was what he had originally intended. So
that's gotta be hard. Like, I mean, you know, I'm doing revisions on a book right now.
Yep.
And it's hard, right? Like, sometimes I stumble across a sentence and I'm like, I don't know that I need this sentence, but then I'm also reluctant to get rid of it.
Right, because it's yours.
Because it's mine and it's one sentence. But then I have to remind myself, like, I don't think this book or even this scene is going to live and fucking die on this one sentence.
Right.
But I want it.
Yeah.
But it's mine.
Yeah.
So I'm sure every writer or artist can relate to that.
Yeah, definitely. So no direct like sequels or anything to this, but I guess there was a novel that was released in '83 to kind of
I did hear that too.
Companion.
Yeah.
And they kept it relatively close to the film, I guess, as well. So it's pretty much just a novelization of what we watched, plus a little bit extra stuff.
Weird little cottage industry.
Like, I kind of feel like that's what they were doing in the '80s. Like, I have the Dark Crystal book, which is just essentially the movie with maybe like a couple extra, like, here's what happened from this scene to this scene.
Yeah, like, I mean, you know what's really weird? Do you remember A Million Ways to Die in the West?
Sure.
The Seth MacFarlane Western comedy?
Yep.
I remember being in a Indigo like a few months after that movie came out, and I looked over and there was the novelization of A Million Ways to Die in the West.
Yeah.
And I was a little like, what? Like, and I picked it up and I was like, wait, they still do this? And it's here at a bookstore?
Yeah,
like,
that's interesting.
It was. And like, I actually flipped through it, and it's basically what I've heard is that they just give the writer one version of the shooting script and like, go novelize.
Right.
What a weird job to have to do.
I feel like it was maybe more prevalent in the 80s because, like I said, I had I have a book from an 80s movie.
The Dark Crystal.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder if they still happen anymore.
Like you said, it does occasionally, but I kind of almost wonder if it was like an 80s thing of like, oh, we should capitalize like as much as we can on this film.
I mean, like, yeah. I mean, if you have a hit, it's probably going to make money.
Yeah.
I remember seeing the God of War novelization in a bookstore once, and I was like,
interesting.
Okay. I was like, now you guys got to stop. But it wasn't like the new critically acclaimed God of War. It was the OG one from 2005, where it's just a lot of stabbing minotaurs.
So, score of the movie, I thought the score of this one was awesome.
Yeah, I did too.
One of the highlights of the movie for me, like, it's kind of got this really cool, like, creepy organ music to kind of start us off with.
Yeah.
And it becomes more and more digital as time goes by, which I don't know how well I picked on the digitalization of it, but
that went over my head.
I really vibed
cool.
with it throughout the movie.
Okay,
for sure.
Nice.
Solid score. Look back at the times. This is one of the wildest things that I think that came out of my research of this movie, that David Cronenberg turned down making Return of the Jedi to make this movie.
Wait, really?
Yes.
Wow.
He was one of the top directors who were pinned to potentially make Return of the Jedi.
What the fuck was going on in the 80s? Between him and David Lynch, why did George Lucas want all these weirdos directing his movie?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of almost wish that we had gotten the Return of the Jedi version from Cronenberg, because it would have been wild.
Yeah. When Darth Vader peels the mask off, like parts of his face.
Oh, yeah, it would have
like,
been,
You see, like, his teeth and his jawbone, like.
Yep.
I'm kind of glad though that he made this movie instead. But
Yeah.
I can't imagine Cronenberg would have enjoyed making like a
No, and
big budget sci-fi
not at all. Like
sequel,
part in
kids
like
film.
a franchise.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and his main reason for not taking it was he didn't have a desire to make anything that other filmmakers had already kind of written. Like he kind of wanted to do his own thing, and you know what? Credit to the guy for always sticking to his guns and sticking to his own thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine. It almost feels like that kind of would have been like a David Lynch Dune type situation.
Yeah,
where he's just like, I fucking hate that movie. I'm not proud of it. Blah
right.
blah blah.
Well, I mean, he could have been like a big check, right? Like he could have gotten. He could have probably made a lot more money making not the Last Jedi, Return of the Jedi.
Now I would like to see that one too. Cronenberg doing The Last Jedi.
Just any Cronenberg movie at this point in a franchise, that would be something else.
Yeah, did you see the...
You know what would be cool is him getting in on the Evil Dead franchise.
Oh, yeah, he would fit that franchise like a hand fits a glove,
yeah,
you know?
I could be into that.
Yeah, I could. Hey, Cronenberg, if you're listening, and Sam Raimi, if you're listening, there's still time.
There is still time.
Yeah.
So, legacy of this movie, this was also partially funded by Universal, and it was the first Cronenberg movie that like any major Hollywood studio actually backed for him. Despite this movie being a bomb, it's kind of a pretty important film, I think, in his film career.
Yeah, I mean, he got to make a lot of movies after it.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And it did actually win some awards. Like, he won Best Director at the Genie Awards.
Oh, the Genie Awards.
The Genie Awards.
Oh,
yes,
hey.
You know the Genie Awards.
I do.
You watch them every year.
I do. Every year.
Every year.
I remember when Will Smith slapped Chris Rock at the Genie Awards.
I think you mean Gene Levy and who is another Canadian actor?
I don't know. It's dead, Blake. The bit is dead. Let's move on.
Oh, I said Gene Levy too. I didn't even say Eugene Levy.
Yeah.
God. Brutal.
Is Eugene Levy Canadian?
Yeah.
Oh.
Of course he is.
Wow, yeah. We need to workshop our banter sometimes. We almost need like pre-prepared bits. Yeah.
Not prepared at all. And personal reviews on the partner factor. I guess I'll start off and say, like, obviously, this is not a Jess movie. Her and I didn't watch this one together.
Yeah, that's smart. See, you know your wife so well that you just probably didn't even bother asking her.
Yeah, I was super mixed on this one, honestly, though. Like,
yeah.
Again, I was along for the ride. Like, ultimately, like, I think I'd give this one like a 6 out of 10. Like, for me, like, I really liked it. And then, honestly, I think I need to watch it again. Like, I think I'll return to it because I really like the performances. They all kind of really nailed it for me. The effects are super cool, like 80s effects. Big thumbs up for that. You know, there's some kernels of ideas that, you know, maybe I just missed on the first viewing. But I think that there's enough here that this is one that I will return back to at some point in time. Maybe it didn't quite come together. It's like a Stephen King book, right? Like the third act maybe didn't quite come together for me, but I enjoyed the ride for the most part.
Okay. Yeah, I watched this with Sarah, my partner. She's probably, I would say she'd probably give this movie like a 6 or a 7.
Uh-huh.
She definitely didn't like it as much as I did, but
Right.
she did admit she thought it was interesting.
Uh-huh.
So, but yeah, I'd give this like a solid 8 or a 9 out of 10.
Did she like Perot Le Fou more?
She liked it a lot more,
yeah.
I think. Yeah, you two will have a lot. Blake's going to get to meet my new girlfriend for the first time this weekend for my birthday. And
wow.
That'll be the first thing you guys talk about. It's how much you liked that fucking movie.
That's great. It's a great movie.
Yeah, well. Yeah, no, I like this movie quite a bit.
No expansion on why you liked it.
Well, I think I just like everything I've said. Like, I liked kind of the thriller investigation tone. I liked the unconventional subject matter of like sex and violence. And I think moreover, like I feel like I'm one of those guys where like I don't really engage with theme that much.
Right.
I'm more interested in just plot and character and even just scenes.
Uh-huh.
But like this is the one time I was like, wow, like this movie was quite ahead of its time and what it predicted.
Yeah.
I mean, if we can call this movie a sci-fi movie, it's one of my favorite sci-fi movies.
Yeah, it's kind of in that borderline realm of sci-fi. Like I think a good sci-fi to me not only like is kind of futuristic, but also it explores like interesting themes and ideas about humanity.
And I guess we can call it sci-fi in the sense that it did kind of get a lot of things right, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I was kind of thinking about this as well, because I've definitely explored this idea before, and it's like, is the end of an era the end of a civilization or a political or group kind of thing? Is there something to kind of the degradation of art into like just basic, primal instinct of sex and violence? Like, is that kind of the pinnacle of the end of a society necessarily? Like, like,
maybe.
And so is that kind of what this movie is exploring as well? Of like, this is a movie where this is kind of where that's becoming the pinnacle of TV, right? Like, is we're kind of literally boiling down beyond the plot to just those themes and ideas.
Yeah.
And that's kind of this society kind of collapsing in on itself. I think that's been explored before. I think that it's an interesting idea, but maybe it wasn't quite as explored in this one as I would have liked. Because again, the plot, I think, took a backseat to some really cool special effects and some great performances and scenes.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And I mean, this is why part of the reason I find this movie so charming is that it got a lot of things right, but like the way it's posing those questions do feel kind of quaint.
Yeah.
In the sense that it's like, oh, you think this is bad? Like,
And somewhat unresolved.
Right.
In a way that like I didn't, and not every like problem needs to be resolved in a film. Like,
yeah.
I'm happy to leave some ambiguity every once in a while with
sure.
some story plot points, but
I mean, you could even argue that like, it's more important to raise questions than it is to answer them.
Yeah, but I mean, for me, I think it just became like the last act, the entire final act of this movie is so ambiguous that it was kind of like, okay, what am I supposed to take away from this?
Well, that you shouldn't fuck your television. Come on, Blake. Weren't you listening? God. So I can't with this guy.
So yeah, I mean, I guess that's where I'll probably leave it. Again, not my favorite Cronenberg, but I haven't seen all of his movies yet. I've seen movies of his that are a little bit grosser. I've seen movies that are a little bit maybe more intriguing in terms of character studies. So, maybe not quite top of my list, but it is widely recognized as a cult classic, as one of Cronenberg's better movies.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that was Videodrome.
Yeah, next week is going to be your choice. Have you thought about what we're doing yet?
Well, we're still not doing American movies, right?
Correct.
Right. So I guess we can't do Casablanca.
Correct.
That would have been, okay, leave this with me.
Okay.
I'll think about it.
Cool. Well, you need to think sooner or faster or something.
Oh, Blake. I don't do anything faster.
Yeah.
This is what all my employers have had to figure out the hard way.
Yeah. Okay. I guess at this point then, we'll see you next week for your choice. As always, tell your dad.
Maybe not about this one.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.